Lucas Webb doesn't like me, his fiancée from the countryside. To make me break off the engagement, he hired a poor student from school to impersonate him. A nouveau riche and a pauper who can't afford to eat. What a perfect match, they said. I bet the nouveau riche won't last 3 days before calling off this engagement. The poor student was tall, cold, and broken, rarely speaking. I believed it was true, thinking the Webb family had really gone bankrupt and he couldn't even afford food. My father's words echoed in my ears. Darling, bankrupt or not, we don't discriminate. We have money to support him. So when he was hungry, I gave him food. When he worked part-time, I acted as his bodyguard. When his mother was hospitalized, I paid the bills. I took good care of my impoverished fiancé. Until that day, when a handsome young man snatched away the breakfast I had carefully prepared. Just as I was about to get angry, he looked at me with frustration. Clara, look carefully. I'm your real fiancé. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. My dad said I had a fiancé in the city. To let me choose whether I wanted this or not, and also to help me get into a good university. He arranged for me to transfer schools in year 13. I was sent directly to Lucas Webb's class. I heard the Webb family was the wealthiest in City J, with deep roots. My dad even had me bring many expensive gifts. But when I got off the train, no one from the Webb family came to pick me up. I was initially upset, but when I arrived at school and saw the thin Lucas wearing a faded short-sleeved shirt, my anger dissipated completely. It was a classmate I met on the way who kindly guided me after seeing the photo in my hand. Year 13, Class 3? You're looking for Lucas Webb? I know him, I'll take you there. He raised his hand and pointed. Following his gesture, I saw a boy sitting by the window. His back straight, looking thin and clean. The afternoon sunlight filtered through as if sieved, slanting across his profile. An occasional breeze lifted a few strands of his hair, revealing his smooth forehead and straight brow. I glanced down at the photo, then back at him. The words of that classmate echoed in my ears, his voice filled with heartache. You don't know, the Webb family went bankrupt 2 years ago. Now Lucas has to apply for financial aid at school. And he works part-time jobs after classes. Sometimes he's so poor he can't even afford to eat. Our family actually had very little contact with the Webbs. And they wouldn't have broadcast their bankruptcy to our countryside home. I let out a soft "oh" and nodded like a pecking chick, promising not to spread the news. This is our new transfer student, Clara Lynn Scott. Everyone, please welcome her, the teacher said, pointing to an empty seat in the back row. You can sit there for now. I looked up and saw it was next to Lucas. From the moment I entered the classroom until the teacher assigned my seat, Lucas never once looked up. He kept his head down, writing something on paper. My seat required me to walk behind Lucas. As I passed his desk, my bag accidentally caught on something. I gave a gentle tug, and an enamel mug fell from Lucas's desk drawer. The mug rolled half a turn on the floor with a crisp clang, and the only half of a hard bread roll inside fell out, picking up a layer of dust. I clearly saw Lucas's shoulders tremble almost imperceptibly, but he didn't turn around. A few suppressed snickers came from around us. I glimpsed several boys nearby whispering about his back, their eyes full of contempt. So Lucas really was living such a miserable life. The spirited young man in the photo was now truly unable to afford even a proper meal. I bit my lip, hugged my bag as I sat down, and apologized softly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He still didn't look at me, just kept his head down, and stuffed the mug I had picked up and placed on the desk back into the drawer. I'm Clara Lynn Scott, do you remember? I tilted my head and leaned in to look at him. Actually, we had met once when he was 6 years old. Like my mom, I'm a super looks-obsessed person. Back then, little Lucas was so delicate and beautiful, I simply couldn't get enough of him. But at that time, I took him to play with chickens and got his bottom pecked. So he never spoke to me again after that. Fortunately, he hadn't grown up ugly, he was still as beautiful as when he was little. He was startled by my sudden movement, leaning back slightly and looking at me with downcast eyes. His eyes were so beautiful, like shining black diamonds. His eyelashes were long and dark, covering his cool eyes when lowered, making him seem less unapproachable. After the initial shock, he still didn't speak. I scratched my head. "I'm your fiancé, remember?" He happened to be drinking water and choked a bit when he heard this, coughing in a suppressed voice. I quickly patted his back. After he recovered, he looked at me with an odd expression, his fair face flushed. Maybe he didn't remember, or maybe his feelings had changed after the bankruptcy. Anyway, I understood. We might as well treat each other as strangers and make friends anew. So I smiled and extended my hand to him. "Well then, we're desk mates now. I'm Clara Lynn Scott, nice to meet you. Oh, and could I ask you for a favor?" I thought Lucas would ignore me again, but this time he did speak, though still coldly. "I don't have time." The kind classmate who had shown me the way to my classroom suddenly turned towards the stairwell as soon as he saw me enter. There, a group of wealthy students were waiting for him. Gail Crawford excitedly addressed the handsome boy at the center of the group. "Lucas, it's done. That girl isn't bright at all. She believed everything I said." When I pointed out Stephen Reed and told her that the Webb family had gone bankrupt, and Lucas Webb couldn't even afford to eat, her jaw dropped. She even saw Stephen's stale bread. People are struggling so much these days. Does she really think she can help the poor? I bet within 3 days, she'll obediently ask her dad to call off the engagement. Lucas' eyes flashed with impatience, but he still confirmed. "Are you sure it can be sorted in 3 days?" She really believed it? I saw the photo she had. It was just your side profile, looking quite similar to Stephen Reed. Anyone could have mistaken it for him. I also told her that after the Webb family went bankrupt, you changed your name to avoid debt collectors. She's bound to believe that. If she actually runs into you, just say it's a coincidence of the same name. That'll keep her from clinging to you. Lucas put his hands in his pockets, his handsome features relaxing slightly. Nouveau riche from the countryside. What era do they think this is, still arranging marriages for children? Exactly. The Webb family has a century of heritage. Even if you were to marry, it should be someone from a similar background. Like how your older brother married the heiress of the Miles Group. How did it come to you being tied to a country pumpkin? Indeed. My mom's been causing a fuss at home for days about this. She's even gone on a hunger strike to force my dad to call off the engagement. But my dad always listens to grandfather. And grandfather is all about honor and keeping promises. He insists on fulfilling the commitment he made to his wartime comrade when they were young. By the way, I think your fiancé. Lucas gave him a cold look, and he quickly changed his tune. I mean, that country girl is quite pretty actually. I sneaked a photo earlier, want to take a look? You might like her, you never know. Lucas scoffed, "Are you mad? You know my standards. How could I be interested in someone from the countryside?" Gail scratched his head, muttering, "She really is pretty though. Much better looking than that school beauty you've been hanging around with." I knew none of this. At that moment, my eyes were only on Stephen Reed. Yes, he said his name was Stephen Reed, and that's what our classmates called him too. The Webb family must have changed his name to hide from their debts. I spent the whole day trying to talk to Stephen. But he rarely responded, sometimes even pretending not to hear me. But I'm quite the chatterbox, inheriting my dad's love for talking. My dad could talk to the cows all day long back on our farm. Plus, I've always been quick to warm up to people. So I can pretty much carry on a one-sided conversation without any problem. "Hey, do you know any good places to eat in City J? It's my first day here, and I don't know the area at all. By the way, are you a day student or do you board at school? Oh, why is this lesson different from what I learned back in my village? Where's the water fountain? I'm so thirsty." Sometimes Stephen couldn't take it anymore and would mutter, "Pay attention to the class." After a pause, he'd add, "The water fountain is outside class 4. You can go during the break." After class, I had already forgotten about getting water. I quickly called my dad to tell him about the Webb family's bankruptcy. My dad was shocked on the other end. "What happened?" "Never mind, sweetie. If they're really broke, then so be it. We can't discriminate against the poor. It's times like these that show people's true nature. If you really like that boy, we can support him, no problem. I nodded, though I wasn't particularly fond of Steven. It's just that he seemed so pitiful. I don't have much, but I do have money. Which is exactly what he needs most right now. Our family's wealth started the year I was born. In '98, when the housing reform was just a whisper in the corner of the newspaper. My dad set his sights on that abandoned grain depot in the county town. In 2005, when I started secondary school, the city began developing new areas, and he jumped right in. Later, when the internet boom hit, he didn't understand it, but he knew enough to invest. Our family's wealth is recent compared to the generations of accumulation like the Webb family. I suppose I am what people online call new money. But being new money has its perks. At least my dad hands me credit cards one after another without blinking an eye. I could even buy the karaoke bar where Steven works part-time, but I didn't do that. It took me several days of pestering Steven to find out which karaoke bar he worked at. Steven at night looked different from during the day. He dressed more casually, and even his hair was a bit messy. I had followed him secretly, so when Steven saw me, his brows furrowed tightly. "Who told you to come to a place like this?" He led me to the stairwell. "Who told you to come to the karaoke bar?" Now he had plenty to say. I pulled a sandwich out of my bag and pushed it into his hands. Steven froze, his hands suspended in midair. "Eat it," I urged, pushing it closer to him. "Oh, I bought too many, and the shop owner said this one would go off if not eaten tonight. I can't finish it, and it's not good to waste food, so help me out, will you?" I had found out that Steven works at least 3 part-time jobs every day after school. First, he hands out flyers on the street, then he runs a stir-fry noodle stand. And only after closing that does he come to work at this karaoke bar. A portion of stir-fry noodles sells for £7, but he never allows himself to eat any. He either makes do with the bread he brings from home in the morning, or waits for the leftovers from the karaoke bar customers' tea breaks. Over the past few days, I've gotten quite friendly with our classmates. Quite a few of them warned me not to get too close to Steven. They said he had a weird personality, always gloomy, and never interacting with anyone except to do his homework. They said his family not only had a mother with kidney failure but also a disabled sister. Strange, Mrs. Webb's illness was so severe? But I didn't dare ask Steven, afraid of hurting him again. "Why?" Steven asked, holding the sandwich and looking down at me. I waved my hand and widened my eyes slightly. "Why does there have to be a reason? You're my desk mate, and you helped me with a problem today." I nodded firmly. "That's right. My dad said if I don't get into a good university, he'll break my legs." "Steven, I'm bribing you, you know? This sandwich isn't free. You have to keep helping me with my studies tomorrow." I had caught a glimpse earlier. Goodness, this guy could score 149 in maths. He pursed his lips. "Don't you think I'm dirty?" I widened my eyes. How could I? I bent down, exaggeratedly sniffing around him. "Don't you know how clean your mom washes your clothes? When I sit next to you, the wind always blows the nice soap smell from you to me. Look at my clothes." I held up my dirty sleeve for him to see. "Much dirtier than yours." "Would you think I'm dirty?" In the darkness, Steven suddenly looked up at me, his eyes shining like stars. He held the sandwich and shook his head. I lifted my chin proudly. "That's more like it. I'm your Fian." I pouted to the right, stopping myself just in time. Steven insisted on leaving work 10 minutes early to walk me home, stuffing a copy of his notes into my backpack as we left. My dad had already bought me a house in the posh estate before I arrived. Ever since my mom passed away, he's been watching over me like a hawk. He initially wanted to come with me, but I politely declined. In the end, he carefully selected a nanny to accompany me to school. As we were approaching the estate, I suddenly veered off, leading Steven towards another street with more modest houses. His family had gone bankrupt, and seeing the cluster of luxury homes might bring back painful memories. "This is my place." I randomly pointed at a house, then urged him, "You should head home now." Steven looked up at the house, then suddenly patted me on the head. "See you tomorrow, desk mate." If any of our classmates had been present, they would have noticed that Steven seemed to come alive, like a paper cutout suddenly animated. The usual gloom and despair were gone, replaced by a hint of anticipation for tomorrow, which wasn't always promising. After Steven left, I quickly ran back to the posh estate. I was running so fast that I nearly collided with someone coming around the corner to my building. The person reacted swiftly, reaching out a hand to steady me just in time. I looked up to see a very handsome and refined boy's face. I furrowed my brow in confusion. He seemed oddly familiar. Then it clicked, he resembled Steven quite a bit. But why did he look so dazed? I waved my hand in front of his eyes. Hey, I'm fine. You can let go now. He snapped out of it and quickly released me. Sorry. I nodded, unbothered, and started to walk away. The young man suddenly called out behind me. Do you also study at Central High? But at that moment, my dog Bean came bounding out to greet me. I happily ran to meet him, instantly forgetting about him behind me. Lucas stood rooted to the spot, watching as the girl hugged her dog and joyfully disappeared around the corner. By the time he came to his senses and tried to follow, she was long gone. He opened the group chat on his phone. Has anyone seen a tall girl at our school with long hair, big round eyes, and a small mole on the tip of her nose? Someone replied, what's this about? Found a new girl somewhere? Love at first sight? No way, Lucas has such high standards. Even the prettiest girls at school don't catch his eye. How could he fall for someone at first sight? Lucas propped his legs up on the coffee table, staring at the words love at first sight for a long while. Cut the crap. Just tell me if you've seen her or not. Well, I've seen girls with long hair, and girls with big eyes, and tall girls. But not one with that exact combination of features. How about this, mate? I'll scout around for you tomorrow. If she goes to Central High School, she can't hide forever. Lucas lazily replied, if you succeed, there'll be a handsome reward. Lucas came from a wealthy family and was blessed with good looks. This gave him an innate confidence that he could win over anyone he fancied. After class that day, Steven bent down and took the broom from my hand. You sit down, he said. The sunset had turned the classroom windows a honey color. Steven gripped the smooth-worn broom handle and began sweeping with practiced ease. Do you often do cleaning duty? I asked, perched on Steven's desk, swinging my legs. He nodded, explaining, some people pay for it. £10 each time. He glanced at me awkwardly. I didn't mean. I hopped off the desk and grabbed a mop nearby, fuming. That's so stingy. Cleaning this whole classroom for just £10. Even worse than my dad. The chirping of birds outside suddenly seemed very loud. Steven looked down at the floor, feeling that the tedious cleaning duty wasn't so unbearable after all. After finishing, Steven was about to head to his evening market stall. He turned to me. I've written down today's problem-solving steps on the back for you. You can review them again tonight. If there's anything you don't understand, I'll explain tomorrow. I paid little attention, looking up at him. Can I come with you to your stall? Steven hesitated, gently saying, everyone's rushing to revise in the evenings, otherwise it's easy to fall behind. In the end, Steven still didn't agree to let me come along. He looked really worried that my dad might break my legs or something. When I finally made my way to Steven's stall on my own, I saw him hunched over in an apron, frying noodles for a customer. Steven noticed me, his spatula pausing for half a second. Why did you come? Is this a classmate? A gentle voice came from nearby. Are you Steven's classmate? I followed the voice to see Steven's mom. Though her face was gaunt, perhaps from illness, you could still see her pretty features. Hello, Mrs. Reed. I'm Steven's desk mate, I said with a smile. She looked delighted, her graying hair shimmering in the warm yellow light. Would you like some noodles? Steven doesn't often have classmates visit. Let me fry some for you to try. Steven stopped her, glancing at me. You sit down, I'll do it. I smiled at him, my eyes urging, hurry up, I'm hungry. Steven said nothing, turning to take things out of the cooler. First, 2 free-range eggs cracked into hot oil, the aroma sizzling out. Then he added a large spoonful of shredded meat, sliced sausages, prawns, and a secret meat sauce. As he stir-fried on high heat, the fragrance spread everywhere. When the vegetables and bean sprouts were just cooked, he added a handful of noodles and continued frying. His wrist moved quickly, tossing the noodles coated in soy sauce. Green onions were sprinkled on top, and the finished bowl looked deliciously colorful. I glanced at the menu prices and realized Stephen had made me the deluxe version, which sold for £21. I sat at the small table as Stephen brought over the noodles. I rubbed the disposable chopsticks together. Stephen crouched down to watch me, his eyes a bit nervous. Try it. I have to say, his cooking skills were impressive. Just the smell made my mouth water. I took a big bite and immediately gave him a thumbs up. A while later, I hugged the bowl, looking at Stephen with red eyes. Stephen, why do your fried noodles taste like Mum's? I miss my mom. Seeing my eyes, Stephen looked flustered and stammered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I stared at Stephen for a good while. He was so gentle, how could he be so gentle? His fringe fell neatly over his handsome brows and eyes. That brain that could solve countless difficult problems was so silly it could only say sorry. I remembered that when he was younger, Lucas Webb was clearly a beautiful but proud swan. It seems these past few years must have been very difficult for him. I tilted my head and looked at him. You'll definitely succeed. Stephen blinked. What? I didn't say anything more. I'd never met anyone like Stephen before. Even with one foot in the mud, he was still clean and pure all over. He was also very impressive. Even though he only had classroom study time each day, he still monopolized the top spot in our year. So, temporarily losing his shine didn't mean anything. I felt that Stephen would definitely succeed, no matter what he did. On the weekend, I didn't contact Stephen again. My fingers were itching to get behind the wheel, so I made my way to a racing club. I hadn't had the chance since coming to City J. To my surprise, I was turned away at the club's entrance. Sorry, miss. We're closed to the public today. No visitors allowed, I'm afraid. I pointed at the sign outside, but it says you're open today. Ah, that must be an oversight by our staff. I felt deflated. It had been so hard to find a high-level club. I've loved riding since I was little, first horses, then bikes. When I got into racing, my father sent me abroad to study for a few months. But I couldn't stand being away, so he brought me back home. When I was 15, he sneakily handed me an envelope. Inside was a land use transfer agreement for several acres in the hilly area east of the city. It was an open area with natural slopes, the perfect track layout I'd been dreaming of for months. Just as I was about to leave, a gust of wind swept past me. A familiar handsome face stopped in front of me. His tone full of pleasant surprise. It's you? I stared at him for a while before realizing he was the guy from that night. You race? He arched his beautiful almond-shaped eyes, as if he'd discovered something rare. I nodded confidently. I do, but it's a shame I can't get on the track today. He waved his hand, and the manager who had been arguing with me earlier nodded and left. He turned to me. How about a race? I've rarely seen girls into this sport. Consider it making a new friend. You're welcome at the club anytime in the future. I shrugged, enthusiastically accepting his challenging invitation. The moment the green light flashed, both cars shot off the starting line almost simultaneously. From the corner of my eye, I could see the young man's car demonstrating incredible precision as it took the first turn. Instead of following the conventional outside-inside-outside line, he cut close to the apex, his rear wheels kicking up a cloud of smoke that exploded in front of my car. It was clear he had professional training, and not for a short time. I smiled to myself and jerked the steering wheel. Too bad for him, he was still no match for me. When the checkered flag fell at the finish line, I couldn't see the other car. As I entered the rest area, my phone suddenly rang. Miss, it's about that Stephen Reed. His stall's been smashed up. I'm looking at it right now. Do you want to come? Of course, I couldn't be by Stephen's side 24/7. So I'd hired someone to keep an eye on him. I hung up, changed out of my racing gear, and rushed out without a word. When Lucas reached the rest area, she was long gone. Where is she? He asked the manager who had followed him. Left. Said she had something to do. Didn't even wait a moment. The manager, thinking to flatter him, added, Mr. Webb, I've never seen you go easy on someone like that before. You must really fancy this girl to put your pride aside. Lucas tossed his helmet aside, not bothering to respond. Go easy? Damn it, he had genuinely lost. Lost to a girl, and while giving it his all. But he wasn't angry. A smile played on his lips. He realized he truly fancied that girl. Lucas opened the group chat with his mates and tossed in a photo, quickly typing. See this? This is what you call fate. Ran into her again today. Isn't she gorgeous? Even more so when she's racing. I'll have to show you lot sometime. The group responded enthusiastically. Some complimenting the photo, others teasing Lucas for falling hard. Only Gail remained calm for a while, before finally dropping a bomb in the chat. You're in trouble, mate. You must be cursed or something. The girl you've fallen for? That's your country bumpkin fiancé. That nouveau riche girl. Look at our photos, aren't they the same person? From what I know, that girl really thinks Steven is you. She's been awfully good to him. This is a right mess, isn't it? Good Lord. Lucas sat up straight, opening Gail's photo and comparing it several times. After a long while, he finally managed to type a few words. What did you say? When I arrived at Steven's stall, I noticed he had been hit somewhere, with blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. I had heard that before Steven's father passed away. He had left behind a mountain of gambling debts. Sometimes, these creditors would come to Steven's house. And if he couldn't produce the money, they'd stay for days, eating and drinking at his expense. Occasionally, they'd even show up at Steven's school, demanding money in front of everyone. Since these were debts from his father's gambling, Steven had no legal obligation to repay them. That's why these people resorted to threats, intimidation, and harassment to force payment. The scarred-faced debt collector sneered when he saw me. Oh, got yourself a girlfriend? I figured you were spending the money elsewhere. How else could you not come up with even £5,000? As he reached out to grab Steven, I swiftly kicked the scarred man in his lower regions. I may not look it, but my father had insisted I learn Taekwondo from a young age, fearing for my safety. Don't let my slender frame fool you. When I clench my fist, it's all muscle. I gripped his wrist tightly, causing the scarred man to howl in pain, unable to free himself despite his efforts. You little bye. The police are on their way. Keep shouting if you want. I had called the police on my way here. Sure enough, the sound of sirens grew closer within seconds. The group of debt collectors scattered in an instant. Only the scarred man, held firmly in my grip, couldn't escape. By the time we left the police station, it was well past midnight. Over the years, Steven had already repaid a significant portion of his father's debt. For the remaining £3,500, including interest, I secretly paid it off to ensure his peace of mind. Does it still hurt? I pointed at his cheek, where a deep, swollen handprint marred his usually fair skin. Steven shook his head, then stopped mid-walk to gaze up at the night sky. I followed his gaze, listening as he spoke. You know, he said, extending his hand, palm up. The moonlight is so bright and beautiful. Why would it shine on someone like me? I tilted my head back to look at the moon, spreading my arms wide in delight. Wow, I just noticed. It's true what they say about the harvest moon being the brightest. Tonight's moon is so big and round, like a mince pie. Steven, are you hungry? I'm starving. Steven had been watching me the whole time. He chuckled softly at my words and nodded. That night, we didn't have any pies. Instead, we ended up eating Steven's signature stir-fry noodles. The next day in class, I arrived earlier than usual. When no one was looking, I bent down and took out the breakfast my nanny had prepared from my bag. Just as I was about to place it in Steven's desk, a pair of beautiful hands flashed before my eyes and snatched my breakfast away. I stared at my empty right hand, raised my head ready to get angry, only to see an exquisitely beautiful face. It's you? I looked at him puzzled. Why are you stealing my sandwich? Lucas's smile faltered, and a hint of grievance appeared in his eyes. Clara, have you forgotten me? I'm Lucas. I looked at him in surprise. Oh, you're also called Lucas? He tapped my head with his finger. When we were 6, you pecked my bum with a chicken's head. Don't you remember? It was then that I realized something was off. You're Lucas? I glanced at Stephen's desk. Then he is. Stephen Reed? Lucas looked at me matter-of-factly, curious as to why I had mixed them up. You didn't mistake him for me, did you? I pulled out the address I had kept close to my heart and pointed to it, asking him. But I went there, and no one was there. At the time, I had searched vaguely, and someone had identified Lucas. I didn't pay much attention to it. Besides, I wasn't originally here to force a marriage. Getting into a good university was my most important goal, with Stephen's level far exceeding Cambridge. I could at least get into a Russell Group university if I followed him. I thought it didn't matter about fiancés or whatnot. If I couldn't find him, so be it. Moreover, the main thing was that Stephen was good-looking too, but in a different way from Lucas standing before me. Lucas seemed to be tinged with luxurious splendor. Even his eyebrows and eyes were noble and flamboyant, while Stephen's beauty carried a hint of determination, seemingly fragile yet always standing firm. Who gave you this address? It's wrong. But... He bent down, pretending to be angry. Clara, now that you've seen clearly, I'm your fiancé, the Lucas who has a childhood engagement with you. I don't know who misled you to mistake Stephen for me. I scratched my head. I'm sorry. More and more people were entering the classroom, and many noticed Lucas. Isn't that Lucas? Didn't he transfer to another class? Why is he back? Lucas straightened up and handed me the sandwich. It's all right. I'll come to pick you up after school. Grandpa has been wanting to see you. That night, he transferred £500,000 to Gale, telling him to stay abroad for as long as he could. I looked up and saw Stephen, who had entered the classroom at some point. He was holding his backpack strap with one hand, his back slightly hunched, standing quietly in place. His gaze was fixed on my face, the light in his dark eyes somewhat scattered. Stephen, he had heard everything. As the lesson ended, Stephen hadn't spoken another word. His demeanor had reverted to how he was when we first met. Finally, I couldn't bear it any longer. I picked up my pen and poked his arm firmly. Stephen turned his head almost instantly, and I caught a fleeting glimmer in his eyes. Wow, he was just like the puppy I had at home. I only had to call once, and both he and the puppy would look at me with bright eyes. So, here's the thing. Someone with bad intentions deliberately told me you were Lucas, even making up a whole story. That's why I mistook you for someone else, I explained. But even if I got the person wrong, the time we've spent together isn't fake, right? I continued. You can't abandon me. I didn't know why I was so anxious, but after fumbling for words, I could only resort to threats. You promised to help me. You can't give up halfway. If I don't get into a good university, I won't let you off the hook. Stephen suddenly bent down to rummage through his bag. After a while, he pulled out a thick notebook. These are the classic maths exam questions from the past few years. I've worked out several solutions for each. The ones marked in red are the simpler methods, which should help you tackle similar problems. The blue and green markings are for more complex solutions. They're trickier, but they'll help you understand the underlying logic of certain question types. If you grasp these, you'll be able to handle all questions of that type. Stephen gripped the notebook, his fingers turning slightly white. He had spent the entire lesson reflecting on himself, scrutinizing over and over, only to reluctantly admit that he had nothing to offer. Nothing that could compare to others. All he could present were these cheap, seemingly useless things. After a pause, he added, "It's okay if you don't understand. I'll help you." He looked at me, his eyes twinkling as he smiled. "Clara, I'll help you. Whatever you want to do, I'll be there to support you." I took the notebook. It was quite thick. Stephen's handwriting was beautiful, and the entire handwritten book was neat and tidy. "Thank you, Stephen," I said. The fact that he was still willing to talk to me meant he still wanted to be friends. I held the notebook against my cheek and leaned in, looking at him with a smile. "I'll study it carefully. So we're still friends, right? I'll still walk to and from school with you." Stephen hesitated for a moment before finally nodding slightly. During the break, I called my dad to tell him that the Webb family hadn't gone bankrupt and that I had made a mistake. My dad made a surprised sound. "That's good news. Now you won't be fretting all the time and forgetting to call your old man." He paused for a moment, then added with a hint of disappointment, "I suppose that means he can't marry into our family now." As the last lesson ended, I habitually patted Stephen's shoulder. "Shall we go?" Stephen didn't move. I followed his gaze and saw that Lucas was standing at the classroom door, though I wasn't sure when he had arrived. Noticing my gaze, Lucas turned his head and smiled, his tone casual. "Shall we?" The driver's waiting outside. Only then did I remember that Grandpa Webb had called me at noon, and I'd agreed to go see him with Lucas. Stephen lowered his head, fiddling with something in his hands, and said softly, "It's all right, I can go back on my own." I looked at Stephen, inexplicably reminded of when I found Bean. It had been raining heavily that day, and the puppy, only a few months old, had been abandoned by the roadside, soaking wet. Pushing down the strange feeling in my chest, I followed Lucas. The Webb estate was enormous. Their old family home heavy and elegant, nothing like my house. Grandpa Webb was delighted to see me, asking many questions. However, Lucas's mother didn't like me at all, her expression sour when she saw me. On the way back, Lucas explained, "My mum's just like that. Once you spend more time together, she'll warm up to you." I didn't care. It made no difference to me whether she liked me or not. I wasn't marrying her. Lucas suddenly waved his hand in front of my eyes. "Oh, by the way, that's Stephen, keep your distance from him." Hearing Stephen's name brought me back to reality. "What?" He suddenly stopped talking, only hesitating. "Nothing, just remember what I said." I felt a bit angry but ultimately didn't speak up. From that day on, everyone was saying that Lucas was pursuing me. He pursued me openly and not at all subtly, to the extent that everyone knew about our relationship. He's pursuing his fiancée, it's romantic. What would you know? I thought Lucas looked down on this country fiancée, but turns out he likes her so much. I heard when Clara first arrived. She mistook Stephen for Lucas and was incredibly nice to him. I knew it. How could that poor boy Stephen have such good fortune, with a beauty like Clara chasing after him like a simp? Turns out it was a case of mistaken identity. I didn't hear any of these words because they were specifically said for Stephen to hear. After PE class, I couldn't find Stephen anywhere. I searched everywhere, and finally, passing by two girls, I overheard their conversation. "It's awful, Chris and his gang locked Stephen in the equipment room. Said they'd teach him a lesson. God, should we report it to the form tutor? Better not, if Chris finds out, we're done for. We can't afford to mess with him, it's not worth it for Stephen." I ran towards the equipment room, only to be stopped halfway by Lucas rushing out. "Weren't you supposed to bring me water? I played the whole match and didn't see you." I struggled to break free, anxiously. "I'm sorry, I have something urgent." "You're going to find Stephen again? Clara, remember you just mistook him for me. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't even have the right to speak to you." "Lucas!" I looked at him calmly. "Maybe at first it was because I mistook him for you. But later, the person I got to know was Stephen, not Lucas. I can tell the difference." Lucas frowned. "What do you mean?" I didn't have time to listen to him and ran like the wind towards the equipment room. The equipment room was under the main stand of the sports field, pitch black once the door was closed. Luckily, when I arrived, Chris and his gang were still there. I grabbed his collar fiercely. "Give me the key, or I'll beat you to a pulp." Chris's family did have some influence, and he bullied others relying on his father's connection with the headmaster. His face flushed red. "Let go." "Clara, you've got some nerve. You dare hit me?" I wasn't afraid of him at all and gave him a hard slap. I'll hit you if I want to. Do I need to pick a special day? Give me the key. If even a guy with a scar couldn't beat me, how could these chubby high school boys? Steven? I pushed open the door and called out loudly. Following the beam of light from the open door, I immediately saw Steven lying on the ground, covered in sweat. Under his messy fringe, his slightly open eyes slowly turned towards me. It was then that I realized this wasn't the first time Steven had experienced such treatment. A group of boys at school, led by Chris Sutton, frequently found reasons to bully him. Perhaps no one knew that boys' jealousy could be terrifyingly strong. Steven excelled academically and was good-looking. Despite his poor background, many girls fancied him. However, Steven politely declined all the love letters he received. Even so, quite a few girls still had secret crushes on him. Chris and his mates thought, why should a guy from such a low-class background deserve this? So they bullied him and even spread malicious rumors about Steven. One day, Steven happened to save a child on his way to school. When the child's mother drove Steven to school in her Bentley to prevent him from being late, Chris and his friends saw it. That day, a rumor spread throughout the school that Steven was being kept by a rich older woman. Oh, I never thought Steven was that kind of person. He looks so pure and clean, but he's actually willing to be a toy boy for money. I heard, he's got piercings down there, just to please older women. No wonder. I was wondering how a rich lady could fancy him. Turns out he's willing to do anything. Later, the situation escalated. Until the Bentley lady personally came to the school with traffic camera footage to explain and clear Steven's name. However, the school's handling of Chris and the other rumor-mongers was half-hearted. And they weren't even publicly held accountable. But this time, I dragged Steven straight to the headmaster's office. Clara, Steven called me, pulling me back. Don't cause trouble for yourself. I ignored him and kept pulling him along. Sensing my anger, Steven, tall as he was, bent down as I tugged at him, not saying a word. Unfortunately for them, I had hired someone to record the confrontation between Chris's group and me. They couldn't deny their own words. I made a big fuss. This matter couldn't be easily resolved. And if they didn't want to deal with it properly, I'd post the video on Twitter. When I left the headmaster's office with Steven, I felt utterly refreshed. I turned back to look at Steven and realized he had been watching me the whole time, his eyes brimming with admiration. I immediately puffed out my chest and pretended to cough a few times. Remember to write an apology letter for me. The video had captured my brash behavior of hitting them. But considering my intention to save someone, I couldn't completely escape punishment. Steven smiled and said, "All right." That day when I saved Steven, Lucas was watching the whole time. But afterwards, he didn't say anything. In the following days when he came to see me, it was as if nothing had happened. I felt a bit embarrassed and wanted to find an opportunity to talk to him about it. Just then, my friend from abroad suddenly sent me a video. "Clara, is this Lucas Webb the one who's your fiancé?" she asked. I opened it to see a foreign bar, very noisy, so the person's voice was quite loud. "You know what's funny? That bloke Lucas Webb asked me to make Clara mistake Steven for him, just to get rid of his country bumpkin fiancé. But bloody hell, by some weird twist of fate, this guy fell in love at first sight with that fiancé he'd never even met. Now to chase after that girl, damn it, he sent me packing. All right then, for my mate's happiness, I'll do it." So that's how it was. All the questions finally had answers. Strangely, when I saw this video, my first reaction wasn't sadness, but relief. I thought, I'm so glad that by some chance, the first person I met was Steven. I turned off my phone and poked Steven's arm with my pen. I don't like the sun, so Steven sat by the window. The afternoon light streamed in, giving his profile a golden glow. "What is it?" He put down his pen and turned to look at me, treating every little thing seriously. I examined him carefully. He looked even better with a bit more weight. I'd done a good job of taking care of him. "My dad's come to City J," I said softly. And as I'd hoped, I saw Steven's panicked expression. My dad had come to break off the engagement. The two families didn't interact much. But this childhood betrothal had tied them together for many years. And quite a few people knew about it. For the sake of propriety, they needed to make a clean break publicly. As it happened, both sets of parents disliked each other. So the engagement was called off rather quickly. By the time Lucas found out, the marriage arrangement no longer existed. I heard that on that day, he raced home in his car. Just in time to see my father stepping out of the Webb residence. Lucas, usually proud and arrogant, pleaded for the first time. "Mr. Linscott, please give me another chance." I don't know how my father responded. But when I saw him, he was pacing with his hands behind his back, fuming. What nonsense! They looked down on my precious girl? Well, I looked down on their son too. That skinny beanpole, he'd fall over if you so much as sneezed at him. Later, Lucas came to find me. "You like Stephen Reed? He doesn't compare to me in any way. Does he even know how much a handbag costs you? What's the point of being with such a poor bloke? You and I are equals, Stephen isn't even from our world." When he said this, his tone wasn't accusatory. He was calmly stating what he believed to be facts. I laughed. "I thought you'd apologize to me." After I said that, Lucas finally pressed his lips together and said, "That was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to." I understood then, this person probably never learned how to admit his mistakes. Or perhaps he felt there was no need to apologize, that my forgiveness wasn't important. I looked at him very seriously. "I have money, lots of it. I can buy whatever handbag I like. I'm not going to marry someone just because they can afford to buy me bags. If one day I run out of money, I'll buy cheaper bags. Whatever my circumstances, I believe I'll always be fine. I like Stephen. Whatever bag he buys me, I'll love it. Lucas, I'm not angry about your deception, really, because I never cared that much. I was just mildly inconvenienced by your trick. But for you, playing games and manipulating others won't be a one-time thing. This personality will follow you for life. I truly feel sorry for you." After that, Lucas didn't pursue the matter further. Occasionally, when we bumped into each other at school, he always had different girlfriends by his side. Later, I heard he went abroad for university after his A-levels. Stephen passed his A-levels with flying colors and got into Cambridge that year. I followed him and managed to secure a place at a Russell Group University in the same city. My dad was so thrilled he threw a massive party for 400 guests. It was only then that I learned. Stephen had considered dropping out of school just days before I arrived. After university, Stephen continued his studies with a master's degree. Over the years, the Reed family's situation improved significantly, and Stephen's sister started secondary school. The only regret was that Stephen's mother passed away during his second year at university. I knew I wasn't cut out for academia. So after graduating, I gradually took over my father's business. While Stephen was doing his master's, I expanded our operations to the capital. In those days, after finishing work, I'd drive to Stephen's university to see him. As soon as I parked, I'd spot Stephen, clean and fresh-faced, standing nearby with his backpack, waiting for me. He had grown taller since high school, his features even more striking, but still looking every bit the innocent university student before leaving campus. I, on the other hand, wore long dresses, with every strand of hair meticulously styled at the salon, complete with high heels and red lipstick. Though he was a few months older than me, during that time, I loved to tease him by pulling his tie and pretending to be his older sister. Stephen's eyes would fill with emotion as he knelt reverently at my feet. His whole body flushed as he whispered, "Clara, sis. I'm a straightforward person. I'm rich and beautiful, so of course I live life on my own terms. When I keep a man, I spoil him thoroughly. I had it all planned out. If Stephen became a doctor, I'd open a hospital for him. If he wanted to be an astronomer, I'd buy him stars. Later, Stephen became a top physicist. So, I invested heavily in a research institute for him. As an adult, Stephen became even more captivating. The once lanky boy had shed his youthfulness. His features now sharp and handsome, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. His muscle lines smooth yet powerful. When those hands carried me, veins bulging. He didn't even break a sweat, only his heart pounding rapidly. I loved it most when he wore a white shirt and black trousers. His sexy V-line leading to irresistible places when torn open. Who would have thought that the seemingly cold and restrained Professor Reed was actually so wildly imaginative in private? Sometimes when my waist was too sore and I tried to sneak away, he'd worry that he was getting old and unattractive and that I'd lost interest in him. Clara, Stephen, who rarely cried in his difficult past, now often had reddened eyes in bed. I bought something new, want to try it? But I'm easily tempted. As soon as Stephen took off his glasses, I'd forget everything else. After we married, my career soared. The company I took over from my father successfully went public under my leadership. That same year, Stephen won the highest award in theoretical physics. When the interview video was released, everyone was astonished by the winner's youth and looks. Those who knew him couldn't understand how Stephen, who was constantly rushing between his research institute and undisclosed locations, still had the energy to conduct research and win such an award. Only I knew that they couldn't understand because they hadn't seen Stephen in high school. In the final segment of the interview, the reporter asked Stephen, "Is there someone you'd like to thank most for this award?" The big screen showed Stephen's cool and gentle face as he spoke softly but firmly. "My wife." Stephen's gaze seemed to pierce through the screen towards me. "She's the hero of my youth." She was like a beam of light, long-lasting and brilliant. From then on, she dispelled all the darkness in his life.